Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Well, buddy, it's been a photo finish to set up, but I figure today today was a day we needed to do a show, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen this much activity on social media since I was 67.
Dude, which part, Mike? There's been a lot of shit going on.
There's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah. How was your weekend, man?
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Got a little work in, got a little, out to dinner. Yeah, it was good.
Well, I was sweating pool a lot this weekend. Unlike most weekends, though, Mike, honestly, because I try not to watch pool a whole lot if I don't have to. You know what I mean? So people may not know that. But this weekend in particular, I was certainly sweating, and it was like a fan. And I'll just jump on into it because we got a lot of topics to go over, man. And it was the WPBA of all events, Mike, and it was the Savannah Easton effect. And talk to me about what your takeaway was from the weekend and the overall for the event, and then of course what that young lady is doing right now.
Yeah, no, it looked like a great event. I was a little surprised, given it was U.S. Open. The prize money to me seemed a little light for what should be the WPBA U.S. Open.
What was the breakdown of it, Mike?
Wasn't it 17 for first?
I thought it was at least 20, wasn't it?
I swear I looked at it. I swear I looked at it yesterday, and that's why I was just like, okay. But let's see if it shows up here. Hold on.
Rita Chow took home the grand prize out there. Let me see if I can move this damn chat box without covering up your face, buddy.
Yeah, I think it was 17 for first, 12 for second. Which to me, it was 60,000 added. So something doesn't add up right, does it?
No, I mean, I don't know what their model is like, but I know it was out there in Michigan somewhere and at a casino, and I saw them.
It looked very nice, and the players were all, really positive about how the arena looked, how it dressed up, the big screens. A couple people reported about how,
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
nice they made it for them there. So that's great, and it was a killer field. I mean, great field, obviously. All the killers were there, all the best players. So it was, it was a really big event. And so for Savannah to play like she did and reach the final was pretty amazing. And her road to the finals was not easy. She lost relatively early to Brittany Bryant. And then,
which by the way, there's no shame in losing to Brittany right now because she's been playing real well going back to St. Louis.
Playing really well, finished third in St. Louis. Savannah won some big matches, came from behind to beat Sylviana Liu. That was a great comeback from her. She was down 7-5 going to 8 and clawed her way back and won that. She beat Weiwei, convincingly. She beat
8-3
Pia
over Weiwei, 8-4 over Pia. Solid wins, like you mentioned. The only loss was against Brittany.
Amber Chen. She beat Amber Chen. She really played well, and it's the final was she was up 3-1 and that was it. Then it was over. She was up 3-1. She lost 10-3. So and Rita Chow was watching that. Rita Chow was running out like she was practicing.
I saw a comment on a WPBA post, Mike, or maybe it was in the post, where she had won 17 consecutive matches, has Rita Chow, going back to their last event, which is, I mean, that's solid, Mike, no matter how deep.
WPBA events, right?
Yeah.
WPBA events, yeah. She's a solid player, but she just kind of looked like, she knew it was Savannah's show and everybody's rooting Savannah, and she just basically just said, she's going to make it here, but not on my watch.
Her time's coming yet. It just ain't right now, kid. Is what
yeah,
she was saying.
she slammed the door pretty hard. There was no, that second half of that match, watching Rita shoot was, like I said, it was like a practice session. She was just drilling balls in. So very impressive for her. But yeah, obviously the story is Savannah, and she just did. What she's taking that next step. We've seen it over the past year and a half. She'd do real well. She'd come up against one of the top 10 type of players, the Europeans or the Asians, late in the tournament, and lose hill or lose a lead or something like that. You're like, okay, she's got to take a couple of those losses, go back and swing at something, and then come back and learn from it for the next time. And she's doing that step by step by step by step. Now she's reached her first final. Didn't go as well as she wanted to. So, but listen, she's there now. I mean, the way I look at it now is that she's kind of even money to me in these tournaments now when she hits a Pia or a Margaret or a Christina Zlateva. She's still maybe a step behind Christina Tkach or Rita Chow or Wei Wei, someone like that. But, for the rest of that top 10, she's right there. She's supposed to, be in and win any of those matches. She's even money to win any of those matches. So she's at that next level now where she's about ready to break into the winner's circle. And then, listen, she's 16 years old. So you're looking at these players who are, in their high 20s, 30s, whatever. Listen, she's going to be there at the top well through the end of most of those players' careers. So they can get used to seeing her because she's going to be there for quite a while.
She's the future, no doubt, and certainly the present as it pertains to the American players, and there's a few with promise as well, but they're all, in my opinion, young, so Sophia being another one that is showing a ton of consistency and just looks like she's been taking those same next steps, and those two will always be compressed because of their junior national stuff, and of course, in my opinion, they probably got one of the best rivalries in the game right now, which the game needs rivalries in the overall, but look, you know how I feel about the kid, Mike. I've been real good friends with the Eastons for some time. I've been a huge fan of Savannah. There's very few times that I can recount where like I was cheering like I was as like a fan. It's been a few years, and I think the last time was whenever Shane was going for his first World 9-ball title, and I remember being at the house and sweating that and being like, come on, get there, and just wanting to see him get that monkey off his back. But obviously it's a whole different universe in conversation because it's Shane on the back end of his career, Savannah on the front end. But we're kind of like in this fast food world, right? Where like you want things now and you want things right away. And so it's hard to like keep the patience and stay the path and stay the course and all these things. But I'm with you, man. She's here. She has taken her lumps and her seasoning, and I've seen it from the few events where I've been to where she's been playing at, whether it's, at 13 losing to Jasmine on a side table, but taking her hill and, coming up short against this player, against that player. And it's not even the fact that like she loses, Mike, because everybody loses, right? Everyone goes through these growing pains, but I give so much value into the way that she's taken those losses, and for better or worse, she's been showcased on social media, throughout it. And I feel like it's really just paid dividends in how mentally strong she is and how much heart she has and her determination. It really toughens her up as a player in the overall. And I think she's leaps and bounds in those categories above majority of the players on tour right now. And then you factor in that, oh, by the way, she's only 16 years old. Like, think about that for a second.
It's scary stuff. I mean, and then you start looking at her, the next generation of players. I mean, there's still a lot of young players out there who are, in their early 20s, mid 20s,
sure,
who are really good. But, I look at her and Sophia now relative to players I've seen. I don't think European women players, I don't see any Jasmines coming up, players like that. Now, Asian players, young Asian players, probably quite a few we haven't seen who are monsters who just aren't getting to the U.S. to play in events right now.
Sure.
Um, but you take all that seasoning and experience that Savannah's already got playing these same players, the top players in the world, week in and week out. She's got to be way ahead of the curve, and Sophia as well.
I agree with you 100% on all your points, Mike, and I'll take it a step further. Let them do some kind of some sort of Scotch doubles with women, American players by country. Give me USA, and I'll be willing to throw a little sweater on them, Mike. If you give me two female players from any country teaming up, the only ones that I would be the least bit worried about would probably be Taiwan. But outside of that, I think we can dance with our two with anyone. And don't get it twisted. For me, it is Sophia and Savannah, because and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of American players who play the tour. A lot of them have been around for a long time. I get all that. But when it comes to current form, Mike, and consistency on tour, and there's a couple of other that are there knocking on the door as well. Jordan Helfrey comes to mind. Kaylee McIntosh comes to mind. A couple of other really bright spots that I feel like could have some potential and promise. But listen, when it comes to grading players, and whether it's men or women, you think about resume. And so starting to get there now at this point and seeing the losses along the way and the path that she's taken to get there, man, I feel like even more so, the sky's just the limit. And boy, was I rooting for her yesterday, Mike. I really was.
Yeah, she played great. I mean, she had a long day. I mean, she had to grind through some matches to get to that final. Her comeback against Silviana was really pretty impressive. She made some.
And Silviana was playing good too, Mike. Is it just me? Or that was the best she's had in a while.
Silviana she got herself a little bit messy on that last rack, where she ended up running into the 9 and having to try that long bank. But give Sophia and give Savannah credit for making that last 9. I mean, that was not an easy. That was a long shot from the bottom rail,
Mike,
to the top long rail, and send it up into the corner pocket. That was no cupcake. And with all that on the line, she played.
No, great. Man, that's so tough to do, especially given the circumstances. And the circumstances are always going to be valued more than any normal shot, especially considering what was at stake for both players in that spot, Mike. I think that just further adds just that level of foundation and cement to what will end up being an awesome career, because that's what you need. You got to have a foundation like that to be able to come with big, stone cold shots like that, Mike. And listen, I know she hangs around a lot with the fillers. Look, that was very Josh Filler-like, was that shot right there, because that was, you got to hit that ball pure, and especially given the moment and circumstance, Mike, there's not very few people who do it better than that kid from Germany. I'll tell you that, So, but no, it made the weekend fun for me, Mike, to go and watch some pool, because of course, I love a great story from, the media side of things. But like I said, from me knowing them personally, and we just seen them out in Philly and had dinner before we left. And I also saw her in St. Louis. So she's been on a long stretch of playing, you know what I mean? And competing. Yeah. But like I said, there's so much promise and potential when it comes to our young Americans. Sophia made it to single elimination when it comes to Super Billiards Expo as well. And just the women have been fun to watch, man. And I know it's not the most money on earth, but between the mixed double stuff and the Scotch double stuff, and then it ending with their own U.S. Open event, I think it was pretty cool. I ended up making for a pretty great event. It was an interesting way they raised money, though. I saw them, selling $50,000 worth of cues and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know how much that helped crack that nut, but it seemed like they were underneath it, So. But like I said, all in all, man, it was a lot of fun to go and sweat, Mike. And massive and listen, of course, Rita as well. Massive congratulations to her. The run that she's on, just tearing through. We kind of I don't want to say we're used to it with her, but I include her in that elite kind of category. When you think about the Asian players and women players in general, so it's kind of so you kind of take it with, okay, we've seen this before, and you expect greatness because they're great players and there's plenty of them. And that tournament just had chaos from the beginning, Mike. I saw Han Yu get sent to the one loss side early on. I think it was Jasmine and Kelly as well got sent to one loss side early on. Margaret, Christina. I mean, all these big names that I'm used to seeing are all on the one loss side to start the event. And so, Yeah, I thought it was just chaotic and fun from the jump.
Listen, I see a couple of comments about players from other countries and things like that. I'm not downplaying anybody from
Well,
the
the
Philippines,
Filipinos, they could give
Europe.
them a run for the money too.
Sure, they can, but I'm talking about these international women events. Okay, so yeah, if Savannah goes and plays in an event in the Philippines and there's all these young Philippine young players there, it's going to be rough for her. But
Yeah,
have some of those girls. I mean, these are, she's playing in all the top events with all the top women, whereas one round after the next against the best women players in the world.
well,
So that's something that, the European women who are playing in the Euro Tour or Philippine women who are playing only in the Philippines or in Taipei or somewhere like that, it's a different animal when you start getting
sure.
into these open fields with players from all around the world and they start playing each other. And that's where I think, her being in all these events, being in this Greece for the last 4 years, is a huge difference maker that I don't think these other young girls have yet, right?
Oh yeah, and in hindsight, to kind of backtrack a bit, like I would probably rank Philippines 1, Taiwan 2, and then probably USA 3, only because I got a lot of respect for the Philippine team. They've won world championships together, a
Yeah.
part of team events. You know what I mean? So, but like the game matters, the location matters. So if you're telling me in the Philippines, it's one story, Uncle Mike. But if you're telling me in on a diamond table in a WPBA or whatever type arena, I'd give the value
Or
there a little bit
PBS
more.
tournament,
Depending on the
whether
player.
it's here
Yeah,
or it's in
for sure.
Europe or it's in Asia or whatever. It's going to be a little bit different story. And then these girls may be great girls and they may get there too, but they're going to have to get pounded on a few times in some of those events before they get there as well. So,
Mike, talk to me about this comment here for a minute. And I saw it a little bit throughout the event about the pattern racking and the soft breaking.
yeah,
I saw some like
the pattern racking, that's if they're all doing it, they're all doing it. If it's not, frowned upon or it's not illegal. The soft breaking, I did notice Rita was really doing some love tapping at the end there. But again, you play what rules they tell you to play with. So, I didn't think that Savannah was crushing the rack either. It was get the one into the side, and that's what they were doing. So, they were all playing the same rules. They were all playing the same way for the most part. So, that is what it is. That to me is up to a tournament organizer or up to WPBA to handle.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it was all is fair in love and war, Mike. You know what I mean? And so if someone is better than you in that category, well, then get better in that category as long as you're playing within the rules, And so, as much as I've kind of had this like love-hate relationship with triangles and referees, you know what I mean? Like I can understand that part of it. And when it comes to the finances that go along with that, I can also appreciate and understand that, having put on events as well. You know what I mean? Because everything comes with the cost, especially when you're taking up somebody's time. But listen, they're racking for themselves, pattern racking. I'm good with it, to be honest with you. As long as if you don't like it, change the rule. But as long as the rules are the way they are, then leave it as it is.
Yeah.
So, and it still made like, listen, she was up 3-1, and I had beads of sweat coming down, just saying, let's go. And so it wasn't without opportunity. But it's just part of it's part of the story, right? It's part of the chapter. It's part of writing it out. And so, but to be the last standing, like Steve Shelton says in there, in the U.S. Open, in the first U.S. Open in how long, Mike? 10 years or something like that, was it?
Yeah, it's been a while since they've had a U.S. Open for the women. Yeah.
So, and listen, there's a lot of like, whether you want to say it's fair or not fair, there's a lot of hype around our young Americans. And so it's good whenever I especially love like whenever they show up in these open events like this, women events, and just crush it on their own, because I've seen Sophia go deep in world championships now, and not just junior world championships. I mean, in world championships.
Right.
And so like, we aren't, don't get me wrong, we're way behind the curve in some aspects, like the men, but when it comes to the women's side of things, like, hey, those girls can go out there and dance for sure. So, But anyhow, Mike, a lot more stuff going on throughout the weekend. Me and you were getting fired up in text, and we were
Well,
as the
you tell me
weekend
you didn't.
was.
You got to see the U.S. Open, but you didn't get to see the Beasley Open. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, okay. I'm down. I'm down. Let's talk about the Beasley Open, but first, before I get full tilted, and by the way, I haven't had any breakfast or lunch, so I'm ready to go fucking off here. Okay, like I'm dead ready. I'm in full gear here. Listen, Jesus snaps it off. Mike has
Yeah.
Lucas in the final. That event in a vacuum. Give me your thoughts on those two guys, and how it reflects on Mosconi Cup and things like that.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about this too. It's what's everybody's feeling on how big an event the Beasley Open was financially, impact wise, Mosconi Cup wise. I don't think it has any impact on Mosconi Cup from the stance of Jesus. I'm not jumping on that bandwagon yet. It's good event. I mean, it's close to his home, so good for him to snap one off. Lucas obviously is playing really well. He was a no-show in the Midwest, and I don't remember where he finished in Philly, but I mean, good showings for them. It was a good mid-range regional tournament.
Well, on the note of Jesus and the Mosconi Cup, look, if Emily can make up that, can stretch her own rules and the Fraser Federation for allowing Federer to be a part of Team USA, then you can do the same thing for Jesus. Okay, just snap your fingers, make an announcement. It's your exhibition. You already stretch when it comes to invitees and whatever else, So just make it happen. Besides, the event's dying anyway, when it comes to finding storylines, if we're just being honest about it. And so, I hope they get both. First of all, Lucas is on a good spot going towards the end of last year. Actually, they both were, because they both went deep in that Florida regional event at the end of last year. I think it was ahead of the international, Mike, if I remember right. Jesus snaps that one off, ended up snapping this one off, and he would be in prime position. The rankings are all over the place. I can find some 2-year rankings on there. I can find some silhouette pictures on the Matchroom website. I can find by country on there. But it just seems like a bunch of smoke and mirrors, because I really don't know what's what, when things change over, what's all included, what will be added, what won't be added. So it's hard to understand. But I'm with you when it comes to how much value I give to these regional events. When it comes to dicing up American players, obviously we look at it a little bit differently, because there's not a whole lot of positives to choose from. But when it comes to these two guys in particular, Mike, they seem to be, at least pounding the sand and getting to work and having some results,
Yeah, no, they are. They're getting in there and playing these events and doing well, and that's great to see. As far as I don't know, whether either of them is even paying attention to points, because there's been no discussion of what Mosconi Cup, rankings are going to be. Assuming it's going to be top 3 again, but don't know based on what dates to what dates, stopping at what event, 1 at a time, 3 at a time, whatever, however they're going to announce it with the points players. So, they've not come up with anything from that standpoint. So we're all kind of in the dark, and it kind of takes a lot of luster off of, talking about it. It's kind of like, just pick your team and go.
Yeah.
At this point.
It takes a lot out of the scoreboard watching, but yet we're getting a lot of pushing of ticket sales and Mosconi Cup ticket sales and Florida Open ticket sales and ticket sales for Arizona and ticket sales for the UK and ticket sales. It's like, but in sports, you want to have something to look forward to. What are we sweating? What are we scoreboard watching here? And we haven't gotten that in some time, because of decisions that are made and the way things were set up. And so, and furthermore, listen, when it comes to updating the website, at least they were doing that, but I can't go on there and figure out where everybody stands, know? And so now we got our guy, Richard Walker, who does a great job and always keeps up to date post events to kind of give things perspective for us. But he's his own rogue reporter. You know what I mean? He's not a part of Matchroom, you know? And so look, I saw a post from Darren Appleton says, anyone know what's going on with the Mosconi Cup rankings? Can't find anything. And Jason Shaw, of all people, Mike, says, does it matter anyway? Not really. SVB, Federer, Sky, Lucas or Thorsten, and Bergman. What does that say to you, Mike, as far as where the locker room's at, where the players are feeling at, when you have a guy like Jason coming out on the record and basically saying it's fucking pointless? And he goes on further, Mike, in some other posts that I saw. He says, I think that ship has sailed. They're putting events together just to fill the calendar up and make it look like we have all these ranking events. Jason goes on to say, we are just sheep and they expect us to follow. Has to be a point where we all come together and stand up for the better. And so if Jason's having this he said, he also said, any better events with good added money, not these 10,000 added, should be a minimum of $20,000 added for ranking events. Mike, what are your?
So is he interested in ranking events or not? I mean, you know, if he's not, then why does he care whether it's got 10,000 or 20,000 added? You know, so I don't know. It's the more that things change, the more they stay the same. You know, this is the same. These are conversations we have every couple of years. It was fun for a couple of years when the points were really fun to chase and watch. But
because you believed the process, you believed what they were selling you on, Mike. Though it was a part of it.
If the process was in place like it was, you know, 3 years ago, and they said, okay, it starts with last year's International Open, and it goes through this year's U.S. Open, and the top 3 points getters get in, and the next 2 are wild cards. Would anybody be talking any differently about what the team's going to be?
As far as the makeup of the team?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Everybody would still be saying, you know, Federer, Sky, Shane, and Bergman is a wild card, and one guy making up points. That's what everybody would be saying anyway. So what's the difference?
Because that hasn't worked for the competitiveness of the event, and it hasn't worked for players traveling as well, Mike. Because you see it in players not giving a fucking travel. And by the way, and I put a lot more value in when a guy like Jason has something to say, or a guy like Shane, by their appearances or lack of appearances when it comes to events, as far as really seeing how deep that decay is when it comes to losing the locker room, Mike. And this tells me even more when I see shit like this, public and on post and on the record, that the players are just over it. And that's the vibe I've been getting. That's the vibe you've been getting from players. That's the vibe that has been set out from the last, year and a half at least. But to start seeing them showing up or not showing up and putting it out there, I think just has a different layer to it, in my opinion, anyway.
Well, we'll see whether not showing up has any impact on, how Matchroom allows the team to be selected, and is Jason going on the air, talking all about this stuff, could you see?
And he was the golden boy.
Not picking Jason.
Now I could. Yesterday I could. Today I could. Because I know I've heard far too often what that reaction and like icing you out is inside of Matchroom, and you better play ball or you're not going to play ball, and Jason was always one of those protected golden boys of him. He was off limits, it seems like he ain't off limits anymore when you come out and start saying stuff like that, Mike.
Well, especially for a Mosconi Cup that's in the U.S. If they were having it at Alley Pally, maybe a little different story on how much they need him. But
he still draws eyes, Mike, in viewership in his own right. And not to mention the fact that he's the most clutch player they got. Now, whether or not it's good on the competitive side of things is a whole different conversation. But he does put asses in the seats. People love watching him out there on that stage, where they want to boo for him or they want to cheer for him, Mike.
Yeah.
And the few Europeans that do show up yearly for that event, which I don't know how that'll be this year, they do show up to watch that dude play. I guarantee. And I'm not trying to.
They show up to watch. They show up to watch Filler play too, and.
Oh yeah, sure.
They had no problem leaving him out in the cold either, and it didn't stop fans from coming.
It stopped fans from going to Manila. I think that played a factor in that team world.
Josh not going to Manila affected the crowd in Manila.
I think so, Mike. I think it affects all of them. When if a guy like listen, there's very few guys that move the needle for me, Mike. It's
Nobody was
Josh,
in. There
it's
were very
Shane,
few
it's
people. There were very few
Shaw.
people in Manila other than Filipinos, and Filipinos were not there to see Josh Filler and or Jason Shaw.
I don't know, Mike.
They were there to
people
see
want
Filipinos and Team Asia.
well, they were barely there. They were barely there in general, but the few that were there, I think you miss if you can't take. There's not other stars to go and replace those guys with. You can fill up a fifth spot. Don't get me wrong, but as far as people who are actually get viewership in a tough sport as it is to get viewership, they're one of the few draws. And not to mention the fact that they do play great out there. So like you can justify it, you can spin it to where like it makes sense, and not just making sense for the general public, but I mean even making sense within the locker room. Now, whether some of those players feel like it's fair or not fair, that a guy gets preferential treatment or not is a whole different conversation. But when it comes to just eyes on there, Mike, they're one of the few exceptions. And so I'm just look, if you leave a guy like Jason off of a team, I feel like it makes the Americans more competitive. But then do you still like?
Oh yeah, of course it does.
But I just find it. When you go and you start saying things publicly like that, it really puts a lot of pressure on that relationship and what Matchroom's like tournament performance is going to be like, or how much they're willing to go, and how much they're willing to answer questions.
How tough would it be to just say what the European team is right now? I mean, because it's going to be Shaw, Federer, Moritz, Fran, and somebody else.
Okay. Federer ain't playing for Team Europe, Mike. At least not right now.
Filler.
Yeah.
Shaw, Filler, Moritz.
But Mike, you know what?
And somebody else. So it's no different.
Mike, I've even heard from young Europeans, and I mean young Europeans who are knocking on the door with a lot of promise and potential, that even their response and reaction when it comes to playing the schedule is just hand to mouth. It's not, I want to get in rankings, because even off the record conversations that I've had, it's like, what's the point? I'm not getting a wild card. That's the shitty part about what.
Well, we've talked about that till we're blue in the face. We've talked about how they completely lost touch with this merit-based thing that they were trying to pawn off a few years ago. It doesn't exist. So everybody knows that. So it's no different than it was. That's the way it was before they came out with this. It's going to be merit-based, and we're going to track it through the whole year. And that lasted for about 2 years and then went off the rails. And now we're back to where it was pre-WNT, which is, listen, it's the team is kind of handpicked way ahead of time, and everybody else is, just wasting their time if they're trying to make the team. So that's kind of, again, one of those situations where, it's same shit, different day.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And it's becoming a normal conversation besides just being like a behind the curtain type conversation. And I think a lot of these guys have legs to stand on when it comes to what that minimum threshold is when it comes to added money to be a WNT event. Because listen, we gave them such a hard fucking time year after year about when their schedule was going to be out. But when that schedule came out for the first half of the year, they made sure to point out it was $1 million in the first 6 months of the year. But all that includes $10,000 added tournament here, $12,500 added tournament there, and you can't crack that nut if you're a player, Mike, because even an event like the UK Open, which we've talked about before, imagine you got to fade 256 of the best players on earth, and you got to make final 8 to break even, let alone to make any money to be able to parlay that into a whole nother event to go play into. Final 8, right. Mike, And so what ends up happening is you create this system where you can go and sell to the public for $9.99 for WNTTV. Prize money and their majors are staying the same. We're picking up all these lower regional events, right, to like fluff it up and, it's a full tour and blah, 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 right? The reality is if it's costing $3,500 a pop to play in a tournament, your return on your money as a player isn't exactly working out the way that you were sold on from the beginning, you know? And not even mentioning the stuff that we've already talked about in the past when it comes to, like, what's the deal with the world championship? All these questions that we just have that aren't, we're not going to get any answers to, at least right now. But it's shocking to me whenever you start seeing these named players say, I don't want to go play. I don't want to. And I've heard time after time when it comes to shit like that and players feeling salty after the fact. I've heard about Carlo Beato feeling some kind of way about having to go play Hanoi when he wanted to go play a World 8-Ball Championship, but he didn't want to lose out on playing in the Reyes Cup. We've all heard that story, Mike. And you can go through some of these top guys, and in one way or the other, they've all kind of felt that way at some point, but even more so now, especially now.
Yeah, no, there's more of them kind of making that statement and just saying, well, I'm going to make my decisions. If you want to freeze me out, freeze me out. There's no benefit for me playing the game. So if enough players get to that point, then the promoters got to respond, or completely lose what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know a lot of Americans aren't traveling over to the UK for the UK Open. I don't know what the Asian, guys are going to go look like. I
would imagine the Asian contingent's going to be pretty slim. U.S. contingent's going to be really slim. So it's kind of the new reality of the WNT events. I think the U.S. will be good. I think the U.S. Open will be great.
The U.S. Open, U.S. Open, I think it's going to be phenomenal. That I do believe. And I hope people do go and show up because it is nice airport nearby, big city, lots of options, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that one will be solid. That Arizona one, though, Mike, I was looking at that one. I don't remember what the buy-in is, maybe like 250 or 500, but it's one bullet, single elimination, a la Philippine Open. But by the way, the nearest airport, from what I heard, is like over 2 hours away. So you got to fly into a big airport 2 hours away.
You're trying to tell me that Yuma, Arizona doesn't have an international airport?
Shocking, I know. But why the fuck would you put the most like remote fucking tournament, single elimination, that makes it so hard to get to? Why would that be your single elimination one? Like, aren't you trying to entice players to go and show up? And oh, by the way, people in Arizona are really fucking nitty. Like players, and a lot of great players out of there, but there's a lot of like handicap tournaments. Like, that's what the buzz is all about out there. So when I start seeing announcements like SVB is on board with it, first thing that comes to mind is, well, they probably took care of his accommodations, which they should, but it just, at this point, Mike, I'm so leery with them and skeptical because, like, I saw Shane get announced with the world teams only to not be involved in the world team event, or not the world teams, the rest of the world team, right? Only to get pulled back because he was on that initial press release. Okay. Now they're announcing him 5 months out, or whatever it is, 4 months out from Arizona. But I don't know that I necessarily believe that he'll be there, even though they say he's going to be there, because I've seen a lot of pulling back and tiptoeing. And then, oh, by the way, the part that I really want to go on fucking tilt about is this. I thought WNTTV, Mike, $9.99 that I'm paying my money for. Now, out at the expo, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the tournament, didn't care a whole lot about the tournament. So I didn't, and I was there on site, didn't get to watch it. I didn't know it wasn't on WNTTV, but then I saw some comments online from a guy saying
it was earlier. It wasn't at the end. I don't know what happened there. But listen, all these regional events, they're popping in there. I don't expect them all to be on WNTTV.
Mike, but what were you sold on?
I'm sorry?
What were you sold on?
Were you sold on the Beasley Open? Is that what made you pay your $10? Was the fucking Beasley Open?
It did. No. Well, listen, that wasn't what tipped the scales for me. Because to be fair and honest, I probably wouldn't have watched except for a couple of matches yesterday, bits and pieces, anyway, as it was. But if I'm paying my goddamn money for it, which I am, then I at least want to be able to do it, because I thought what I was paying for was to be able to watch all of WNT tournaments.
People around the world watched it. People here didn't. And if you had WNT, you had they should put out a thing that tells you how to change your VPN, whatever, and watch it like you're a foreigner. So Was it available? Yeah, it was. You had to do some work for it if you were in the U.S. But aside from that, I don't expect them to hold a gun to some $15,000 added promoter, hold a gun to his head, and tell him you can't have pay-per-view at your place because you're trying to make some of your money back.
Then, but
and so from that standpoint, it just doesn't bother me for an event like that.
Look, I get it. It ain't the most prestigious thing in the world. For me, Mike, it's about fucking principle, though. You know, because I was told when they were selling it, and we've done. Listen, at the beginning, early on, we pushed a lot of shit. You know, along with that, Mike. And I don't like changing it after the fact, because here's the deal, Mike. Whenever, let's say, I'll just give you an example. Let's say I quote a guy a price of a Q, right? But I'm mistaken in what I was in it at. But let's say he snap calls the price that I give him. Well, now a month later, I think, man, you know what? I was in that queue more. I lost money on that deal. Maybe I should go back and tell him I need more money, you know? But at the beginning, my reputation means more to me. I would just leave it as it is and take the worst of it. Now I get wanting to change it after the fact, and I get wanting to change it for next year or whatever their calendar changes over, whatever you want to go and do, so that way each consumer has their own, like, they're well informed to know what they're actually buying into. But first we saw it with the Legends where they're charging $30 and they spun and justified that to go and pay all those guys. Okay, you let it slide. I didn't really give a fuck about that event anyway as it was. So no harm, no foul, whatever. I wasn't going to pay $30, right? But then if I just thought, like I said, when I paid that money, that no matter what it was, if it was a WNTTV tournament, World 9-Ball Tour tournament, if it had that stamp on there, I could at least plug into Table One, like Dominic is saying in there, because, oh, by the way, I've seen some of those contracts they do, and he is right. You know, Table One has to have access to it. But now they want to change it so that way the pay-per-view promoters like a Ray Hansen or whatever can get their piece of the pie. And I'm fine for everybody making money, but just don't change my deal, because y'all's deal is a little different now. It's that's the part that's shitty for me as someone who's spending money. And especially, like I said, when there's like now a pattern of behavior where like you're kind of changing the rules of the game here. First with the players, rankings, first with the fans.
I think a lot of that has to do too with them like just jumping, throwing WNT points and accreditation to pretty much anyone who wants to run a tournament. At the beginning, I thought there was a little more oversight and hand picking which events were going to be WNT events, ranking events, points events. And now it's pretty much Katie by the door. If you want to have one, you just send them.
Fucking everybody can fucking throw them on there. Yeah.
So that's where part of the problem is coming too, because you're getting a lot of these small events that then want to have pay-per-view, and if they force it to have Table One, they could do that. They could tell promoters, this is what we got to do. And at that point, maybe the promoter says, "Well, then we're not going to be WNT event." And
then don't do it then. And somebody else, some other fucking shimmer will agree to do it if they don't want to do it.
I agree with that. I just am not as salty as you about the fact that the Beasley Open wasn't on WNT because they had.
Mike, I wasn't going to watch the Beasley, man. I really wasn't, and so I don't want that to get lost in the conversation. Like I said, it's just for me. It's more about the principle. Now, by the way, Doug Beasley makes a great cue, and I saw him out at Expo. Always enjoy seeing his work. He's a phenomenal cue maker. But I'm like, I get from the player standpoint, like going back to what Jason was saying, I don't know if there needs to be this minimum added, because pool's just not where they think it ought to be at right now to be able to dictate. They need to be $20,000 added. But like all these things, all these decisions and steps and actions and new things or fluffed up numbers all seem to be very reactionary and very like, because this happened, we're going to do this, or because we agreed to pay to do an event with Earl and then we got to charge them this now because there wasn't no sales on this, we got to change it to the rest of the world. Everything seems to be real knee-jerk, Mike, and the whole path, and more importantly, what you sold the players on and the fans on is just a crock of shit right now, Mike. It really is. And I have a real hard time. Like, I can remember even doing events with Oscar and Dez before, Mike, and how we used to, like, at the beginning, I used to get real excited at the idea of putting on these WNT events. But then I started realizing, you know what? Like, what's the point? One, bigger names draw away from a bigger tournament, because the more killers there are, the more nitty players get, and they don't want to go and just donate. So that's one thing. And for a room, it's a loss across the board, because you're giving away your table time and everything else for the event compared to what you could have made during that weekend. But it was like, man. And then you think about the lack of scoreboard and all those decisions and all just taking the spirit out of it, and what that does to just, I just don't care. I don't care where rankings. I don't even know where people are ranked at. Lucas having a great year. I don't even know where he's at right now. Thorsten having a great start to the year. I don't even know where he's at right now, Mike. But yet but then you expect me to go and plan out 8 months from now and get a fucking hotel reservation and spend $300 on tickets and flights, where flights are through the roof because of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it what you say you want to have happen, the actions aren't meeting up to having an area where it allows it to really flourish and grow and be.
Yeah, they don't match up. Yeah.
And I know I can be an asshole, Mike, but I'm just seeing stuff like that come to a head from players being fed up. One part of me is, I'm glad they're talking about it publicly, but the other side of it's like, yo, I'm still just, what's going to happen here? Like, because them going around and shooting footage on their meta glasses at the expo isn't getting us any closer. Them going around, Richard, we appreciate you, buddy. Them going around and taking selfies there in Philly ain't getting me any closer to figuring out any answers. And it don't seem like they're in any kind of rush to answer any questions as it is or respond, but they still expect the fans to be as enthusiastic to not only tune in when it's time to tune in, depending on where you may have to tune in to, but then fork over your cash in order to do it, which is already difficult enough as it is in this industry, Mike.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with any of that. It's, they're really just kind of, they're so quiet in terms of saying anything of a substance, even more than in the past. There's nothing of substance coming out of Matchroom these days. It's all just kind of fluff stuff and, and selfies and things like that. So yeah, they I don't know if they're sitting in their office thinking that everything's going great and they're selling a lot of tickets for Frisco, and
I hope they are.
They're going to do really well. If they think that means that what they're doing is successful, then that's up to them to figure out. We know that it's not going well at the player base. It's not going well at the fan base right now. So yeah, we'll see what the next couple of months come up with. Hopefully they'll start making some kind of Moscone Cup announcements team wise, just to put anything out there. I mean, name a captain, put a points thing, put a points list out there, whatever. But it's just kind of, there's not a lot of substance coming out of here these days.
No, and there's not a lot of excitement on the things that they're doing either, and it's not for lack of things to figure out a way to get people excited about. It's just the manner in which the approach that they're taking, because there's plenty of stuff going on in the pool world, plenty of things going on in the pool world to go and celebrate and look forward to. And the Frisco thing, I'm pumped about, especially being from Texas, pumped about, that event. I've been there. I've been to Atlantic City. I love the history of that event. I love that it's in a bigger spot. I hope those tickets do go and sell, because that event, given the amount of money, brings in more players, which is the reason why fans should go and spend money to go and watch that thing. It's just these other secondary fucking moves that just have me scratching my head. And we've already had plenty of tournaments to just watch a tournament for what it is in a nutshell. All sports though, Mike. We're in hockey playoffs just started. NBA playoffs just started. We just finished up with March Madness in that tournament, right? And the whole point of the fucking season, when you look at every one of those leagues or sports, is to figure out where you are. Are you a 1 seed? Are you a 2 seed? Are you a 3 seed? Are you a 4 seed? Where are you going to be at? Who's the matchups going to be? What's the history like throughout the season? All these things that you get in normal sports that like, yo, there's enough going on for us to be able to do that here. And we're just in this like cherry picked atmosphere that just really has taken the excitement out of it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's about as listless, as you can get in terms of excitement for events in some kind of perspective. We're just watching one event and going on to the next event, and it's just like the old days. There's no meaning, there's no method, there's no value to watching. You just
Yeah.
just go from one tournament to the next.
Richard Walker says, "Do you want Jesus on the team or Mora?" Like I would have said no to Mora, but I'll probably say yes to Mora today because he's playing damn good in his own right, and
Yeah,
Jesus and so. But listen, I like I just want something to root for, and something to like look forward to, and something to keep an eye on. I could give a shit less when it comes to the UK Open coming up because those events have been historically a lot of dead money, and especially if the Asian players don't show up, forget it. Just like they didn't show up for the European. That's where I'll just be okay. I've seen plenty of Euro tours, and I don't know whether or not it's going to be on Sky Sports or not be on Sky Sports, or what that relationship with Matchroom and Sky Sports is even like to this point, as when it comes to the events that they're taking on compared to years prior. But like it's been about as bland as a Euro tour, from like an excitement level or an indifference level, whatever you want to go in category, put it in a category, and so, but we'll see, Mike. I don't know a whole lot. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer as it is, you know what I mean? But
well, I mean, we don't know anything because no one will say anything. So, we just have to wait and see what happens and get news as they feel the need to dribble it out. Heck, I'd take news now if they wrote something right now and just said, John Moore is not eligible, no Canadians. Jesus is not eligible, no South Americans. That'd be at least something we know that they're making a stand on something, right? we know what to expect or not to expect from that standpoint.
What was funny is that so at the end of last year when Jesus won that event out in Florida, they were real quick, was Matchroom, for the clickbait. They were real quick to point out the fact that, oh, he's got an American flag in front of his name. Be excited about this post, Now he's just casually back to having a Venezuelan flag under his name, but they're not willing to answer whether or not he'll actually be eligible or not be eligible to go and play. And they write the fucking rules. You can just come out and say it one direction or another,
Yeah.
And so it's just little things like that just, while I get having the thirst traps when it comes to their social media, like I'm okay with that as long as there's substance along with that as well,
Yeah.
But there's not very much substance right now when it comes to at least any of the actual news or answering any questions or things like that, Mike, and so but I tell you what, if I did know where they stood, or if I did know what the rankings were, I guarantee you I'd be a hell of a lot more fucking excited about the goddamn Beasley Open than what I was this past weekend,
You'd be demanding a replay of that Beasley final.
Then I'd want a fucking discount for paying an extra $30 to go and watch it. Fuck, man. Anyway, Mike, listen, for those of you who don't know, I was texting Mike the other day and we were going dead off, and Mike was just picking me apart in our text thread. And I said, you know what? Just save all this good back and forth for the show, because I was on full tilt. And by the way, this is after like 2 or 3 days of being able to like fucking chill out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. It's just Richard Walker says Jesus Atencio 28,000, Thorsten 20, Lucas at 15. So check this out. If this were to go and hold true today, Mike, then you would basically have those Jesus, Thorsten, and Lucas would be the 3 automatics, and you'd end up having Federer and Shane be picked as wild cards, and that would be your team. But now we don't know what the fuck's going on, because they won't say what the fuck's going on, in order that they want to answer any questions to what the fuck is going on. And so we're just left here in the dark and speculating. So,
Yeah.
Anyhow, Mike, this has been a pretty good show, buddy. By the way,
For you were
yeah,
like that off, man. You were like,
yeah,
it was quite the monologue you had
yeah.
rolling.
Well, look, help me out though, Mike, because you're always the voice of reason and understanding with me here when it comes to like having some semblance of like balancing on positions, you know. And I said it when it was your birthday post, how much I respect it. Which, by the way, happy late birthday here on the show as well. But like I got a lot of respect for you, and I love the calmness and untilted perspective you give most times. Not all the time, but most times.
Most times.
Yeah.
No,
No.
listen, I'm not. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
No, it's hard to, I'm certainly not going to try to defend what Matchroom's doing right now. I mean, with the WNTTV thing, it's another instance where it's just kind of making up new rules as they go along, which they've always done, whether it's on rankings, whether it's on events, whether it's on how events get chosen, how players get chosen, things like that. Just kind of make stuff up as you go along to fit the narrative that you want to spin. That's always been part of the issue. But even beyond that, they're kind of disinterest in telling us that there's some method to anything that they're doing is really, disappointing. And that's what the players see too. Their total indifference to the players and making things make sense. And that's why you have all these players saying, they don't care about us. I don't care about them. I'm not playing in the U.S. Open or the UK Open. I'm not playing in the European Open. And if they penalize me, fine. If they don't, no big deal. And so we'll see what, Matchroom response is. Their response going to be defensive, we'll show you guys? Or is the response going to be, okay, we realize we haven't been, as out front with stuff as we need to be, and everybody's got a bunch of questions. Here are some answers. Are they going to do that? I don't know. I would doubt that, but they're really giving up a lot of ground these days to other events, to PBS events, WPA events, to any event that anybody else wants to run where they're legitimately out in front of the players saying this is what we're going to do, and this is what it's going to be, and this is where it's going to be, and this is how you can watch it, and this is the players who make it in, and the players know what to expect. The payouts are good. So yeah, Match was really just falling behind dramatically right now. So yeah, they got some work to do the second half of this year.
Yeah, I think the lust of it has worn off at this point.
Yeah.
And well, if you lose the players, you lose a lot of things for sure. You lose the fans, you lose everything. And so. And the thing is, like, if you were to go and just see like her social media in a vacuum, you would think fucking WNT is just pumping out money, with all the jet setting to Italy and jet setting to, Frisco for a day. Tell me you couldn't take a photo op somewhere else and have money better spent. Even them going to Philly, just for them to go in front of a mic and tell league players they don't know shit about WNT. I could have told you that and saved you about 10 grand along the way, like. It's just it's not adding up, and so
even the trip to Philly, it was like, okay, what's the point?
Why?
Really said. No one ever even said what was the point. What were we trying to accomplish? Why are we here? So it just kind of they're operating in a vacuum.
Here's the last thing, which I'll quit being on tilt after this, Mike. But the last thing is, I remember whenever they were leaving Philly, I seen a post. I don't remember if it was on the Matchroom one or on the Emily one. But at the end of it, she ended it by saying, all this so that we can stay one step ahead. Well, maybe I'm fucking crazy, but I think they've gotten lapped in a lot of aspects, Mike, at this point.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And the things that were, fire in the sky that were so awesome, a lot of those have lost its fire as well, i.e. the Mosconi Cup, And so, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Mike, we got a great event coming up out here this week, the Markang Memorial. And I just heard earlier from Oscar A lot of big action guys are going to be here, so we're going to have. I want to let everyone know we're going to have a big action. We're going to have an action table dedicated throughout the event. Colin's going to be out there doing his stream. I'm going to be hopping in the booth with him. I'm going to be revealing the cues for the raffle coming up probably tomorrow, and I'm going to be giving away a whole bunch of free stuff as well leading up to it. So make sure and keep all your notifications on. And listen, if this one doesn't make me roll on the floor and laugh, I don't know what does. You know what I mean? Like, so she's in her influencer era. Anyway, listen, keep your notifications on for all the stuff we're going to be posting over the next few days. Mike, I'd love to do a show with you when I'm at Hard Times if you're free as well. And maybe you know what I can try to do, because Shane's in town, or he'll be in town for the event. Maybe I can get him on and I can plug up a mic and we can do a show with Shane. I'll try to make that happen as well. I'd be really curious to get some of his perspective as to some of these conversations. And Shane's at a place right now where he really doesn't give a fuck a whole lot anymore anyway as it stands, you know, as far as giving his opinion. So that may end up being pretty good. So you got anything else, buddy, before we get out of here?
Nope. All good.
All right. Well, happy late birthday, like I mentioned. By the way, where did you go eat for dinner for your birthday, buddy? Now that I
went to a nice little restaurant downtown in Milwaukee. Yeah. It was a nice evening. Yeah, I got to just kind of relax and unwind a little bit. So yeah, it just, you know, that's all birthdays is now. Just go out to dinner one night and the next
have a good meal.
Back to normal.
But that's like a Tuesday for you. You know what I mean? You just, you know, you always eat good and always live well. Look, I just like I told you in text, man, I got a lot of respect for you and really appreciate all of your guidance and respect and the way you can check me like a good friend can, you know, as far as how tilted I can be at times, and just all of your wisdom and friendship, dude. I can remember even now looking at Billiards Digest whenever I was first getting into pool and just being glued to it, because it was so awesome to get all the news and articles and insight and check out the cues, and the fact that you've been able to sustain that for so many years and still promote the game the way you do, like, is awesome. I'm glad you're a Hall of Famer. I'm glad you're a friend, and I'm glad you come on the show all the time, buddy.
I love coming on the show. It's always a ton of fun. And we're going to have some good news for pool fans in the next week or so. Speaking of still getting the magazine out there and whatever, we're unveiling our digital platform, and in a week or so with the next issue, we're going to make it an issue available to everyone. Just
really,
just check it out, scroll through it, see what you think. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
If anyone's sticking around to this point of the show, if the first 10 people to go get a Billiards Digest subscription, and you screenshot me, you bought the subscription, I'll throw you in some tickets in the raffle we're going to be doing for the event coming up. So cool. If you stuck around to this point, you guys just screenshot me and I'll throw you a little jelly. Go support Uncle Mike, go support Billiards Digest. And yeah, it's going to be fun. I'll let you know whenever. I'm going to text Shane and see if I can line them up for maybe Wednesday or something, Mike.
It'd be fun. I'll be around.
All right, you guys go enjoy the rest of your day. We're getting out of here. Probably not going to get bitched at because I don't watch the show anymore anyway. But go enjoy. We'll see all you guys and gals a little bit later. See y'all.